most of you have heard by now, the Lexington Mayor Jim Gray made national headlines over the weekend when he announced plans to relocate 2 Confederate statues from downtown Lexington in light of the violence in Virginia. The announcement was followed by a brief stir caused by a man carrying a flag synonymous with the far-right movement who climbed the John Breckinridge statue. Breckinridge stands in the area that was once the site of the Cheapside slave auction, and Mayor Gray believes that's not an appropriate place. The mayor suggests it, along with the statue of John Hunt Morgan, be moved to Veterans Park alongside monuments of the Union. Mayor Gray now joins us to explain his decision rather than me putting it into words. Mayor, first of all, thank you very much for coming on with us. What ended up precipitating you making this decision on Saturday?
Well, Matt, if you dial back a couple of years ago, we first began examining this issue with a review board. And then we wanted to listen to our community, to citizens across the community, and that's what I did. Listened, we heard from citizens across the community. And I've always believed in business and in government that change is better accepted when it's understood. And that's one of the reasons that we were so thoughtful and careful and deliberate about this decision. But you know, at the end of the day, this is what it's all about. That land, that property, that old courthouse lawn and the land beside it is Cheapside. And what is it significant about Cheapside? It was once one of the largest slave auction blocks in the country. And I just don't think it's right that there are 2 monuments to Confederates, to Confederate men who fought to preserve slavery. And these monuments are on really sacred ground where men and women and even children were auctioned to lives in slavery. And so that's when you think about it fully, that's what we've got, and that's why they need to be relocated.
Now, you said on this process 2 years ago, did I understand you were going to make an announcement about that on
tomorrow?
Tomorrow, okay.
Yes,
you decided to do it on Saturday. Walk me through why you decided to do it Saturday.
Okay, so we're at Saturday, and we're receiving the news of what's going on in Charlottesville. You know, Charlottesville is not really unlike Lexington.
Very similar, actually, in a lot of ways.
Lexington is larger, but still a university city. And I knew that I had to speak out. You know, I believe it's the role of elected officials to speak to their community, to their constituents, to explain things. So I think it's the role to stand up and speak out, not to sit back and relax. And the events in Charlottesville were really tragic, clearly tragic, and the hate and the violence, simply wrong. I knew that I needed to speak out on that. The first question we'd get was, okay, Gray, so what are you doing in Lexington about these
So it wasn't like an emotional thing, though, that day. You were going to do it on Tuesday.
We were committed to offering the resolution to our city council on Tuesday.
Now, I have had some people who believe the monument should come down say to me, I'm worried about the fact that this is happening in Charlottesville. Is the mayor just asking for us to be next, for this to be the next city that has this happen? What would you respond to that? My
response to that is that we always have to be prepared, that we're a compassionate, we're a caring, we're a giving city, but we're also disciplined and we're prepared. But I've learned a long time ago, Matt, that when it comes to values, that we really cannot compromise our values.
Do you worry about what happened in there happening here?
The thing a mayor is concerned most about is public safety. But I'm also have confidence in our police, in our public safety across the board. Our police, 2 years ago, let's dial back to Charleston and the tragic events in Charleston at Mother Emanuel Church. Well, a group from Lexington went there last year. And we came back from that with a commitment to examining these issues, racial issues, and it was described as inconvenient conversations, courageous conversations even. And at that time, our police chief, Mark Barnard, said we're going to examine even more our preparedness. So that's what's been.
So you feel prepared?
Look, you're always thinking preparation in this role.
Do you, okay, so what's the process now? I mean, you've just said we're going to do it. Right. Is it going to happen on a certain day? Is it in the middle of the night? I mean, how are you going to do it?
There's actually a fairly challenging process that we still have to go through. First, the city council needs to review it.
Okay.
And a resolution from the city council is required. And then it must go before what's called the Kentucky Military Heritage Commission. And this group has authority over the movement or the relocation of any of these statues, these particular statues.
But you expect it to happen?
Absolutely, I expect it to happen.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's no way that could get stopped?
Oh, the commission could say that.
The commission could say no.
The city council could say no.
Okay, but
these
you
are
expect them
deliberative
to
bodies.
agree?
I certainly hope so.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so there are some people who make this argument, and I disagree with it, but I think it's worth at least getting a response to. By having these statues, you're teaching history. That there are people who would recognize this exists, and it is a part of our history, even if it's a part we do not approve of. Right. And when you take it down, you're hiding that. What's your response to that?
I've actually said the same thing. I've said that we should not erase history. We should not hide from it. In fact, the proposal that we've offered is to relocate these statues to Veterans Park along the Veterans War Memorial Walk, where two additional statues to commemorate the Union soldiers in the war.
So it's almost that.
And then you'd put those in the context with plaques and with narrative that would illustrate the divisions that occurred in this war. In the Civil War, I had 3 great uncles, brothers, 2 who fought on the side of the Union at Shiloh in Mississippi, and 1 on the side of the Confederacy. We grew up with those stories. Well, that's the stories of Kentucky. And so, actually sharing that history is relevant and is important, but putting it in the right context.
So making it more about the history of the people who passed away rather than a celebration of what they stood for. Right. Is that sort of what you're talking about?
The roots of the Civil War, the slavery, the roots of the Civil War, and what that represented at that time, and that these, part of that story is that these memorials were erected on the grounds of Cheapside.
Last question. We got about 20 seconds left. For somebody out there watching who is nervous, that saw that in Charlottesville and is worried about Lexington, what would you say to them? I'd
say that we have an extraordinary competent police force, and they are always mindful, and always careful, and always thinking ahead. And that's what we're doing as a city. We are disciplined and we're prepared.
All right. Thank you very much, Mayor, for taking the time to come in today.